Hello everyone and welcome to my Zyra jungle video guide. My name is Melyn, a Diamond 1 Zyra one-trick pony, currently ranked number 2 Zyra world according to LolSkill with over 800 Zyra ranked games. I play Zyra primarily as a support, but also in the jungle, mid lane, and top lane. This guide will focus on Zyra jungle, but many things will be applicable to Zyra in other lanes as well. This will be an abridged guide, but you can find more information on my text guide on LOL Pro. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me on my stream, by commenting here, or on Twitter. Okay, we'll start with the basics, but feel free to click the annotations on the top left of the video or check the video description to skip to the section of your choice. For runes, I prefer AP Quints, Magic Penetration Marks, Scaling Health or Armor Seals, and Scaling CDR Glyphs. Zyra really only takes jungle damage level 1, where you have laners to help leash and more than enough potions to sustain, so I feel like we can get away with running scaling defensive seals, getting armor or health as you deem best. Also, I usually don't build any CDR items, so the scaling CDR helps a lot and we really don't need any magic resist in the jungle. I go flat AP Quints and Magic Penetration Reds to make early ganks more potent. I feel like masteries are a lot more straightforward on Zyra jungle than Zyra support. I run 18-12-0 with almost no variation. I feel like Deathfire Touch is the best mastery for Zyra outside of laning phase, so I take that here. Furthermore, I take Oppressor because it will apply the extra 2.5% damage all the time with E-plants and later Rylai's, and I will be trying to give laners the kills anyway. I don't need any of the tankier sustain masteries since I won't be taking jungle damage after level 1, and finally I get the mana regen because I usually don't buy mana items in the jungle and this helps out quite a bit. As always, everything here depends on preference and how you play, so feel free to change things up. For skill order, I start Q for the maximum level 1 DPS, then get W at level 2 so the plants can start tanking the jungle. Get E level 3 so that you can gank and clear faster, and after that max Q, then E, then W. The reasoning for this is that Q provides the highest amount of damage and is also the most reliable. Max E next for longer routes. The CDR from maxing W is nice and is a valid alternative to E second, but I find that the longer route duration improves my ultimate's effectiveness much more. Another alternative is to max E first. This is great if you plan on doing a lot of brush ganks, which we'll get to later, but slows your clear by a small amount and gives an increased reliance on difficult and a slow skill shot. Item builds for Zyra in any lane are always highly variant and dependent on playstyle. Personally, I prefer starting Hunter's Talisman and 3 health potions. You won't need all of these for your clear, but there is nothing better to purchase and they are nice to have later. The main question you have to answer is whether you want to build Rune Glaive or not. I'm split on this myself. It's very viable to sit on your Talisman and build a standard Zyra build from there. You miss out on mana sustain from Rune Glaive, the Sightstone-like active of Tracker's Knife, and 15 experience per large monster, which is pretty negligible. But you gain another big AP item which makes you much more powerful in fights. Once you decide this, you finish building like you would in any other game as Zyra. I should note here that my first back is usually very late since you can clear until your blue buff runs out, and you should be ganking as well. I usually back when I can afford one of these groups of items. Get Rylai's as soon as you can because of the amazing interaction with your plants. You will never need to use E-plants again because the Rylai's slow from your Q-plants is greater. The full slow also applies to your ultimate so that it slows them before the knockup hits, making it much easier to land a great wombo combo. After that, it depends on who you're up against. Rush Haunting Guys and Ludens against squishy teams for a lot of burst, Voidstaff and Liandry's against tanky teams, and feel free to finish your build with a defensive item if you want. More discussion on items is in my text guide if you want to check it out. I'd like to end this section with a quick comment about plant aggro. Plants will attack the closest enemy until you auto-attack. Then they will focus on your attack target until they die or you attack a different target. You should be aware of this for clearing jungle camps as well as ganking when there are minions nearby. Next we talk about clearing the jungle. The first question any jungler has to answer is, where do I start? I usually prefer to start the small camp closest to my blue buff as it is extremely important for your early game. Unfortunately, that means that on blue side you have to ask your top laner for a leash. If you're lucky enough to get more than one auto attack, you should still have extra potions because you won't need them after level 1. As a side, I like saving my trinket for clearing my blue buff to discourage invades. If you know they're coming, you will likely have a health advantage and can call for help. Don't start a buff if you see the enemy jungler as you will need all of your plants to fight. I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten first blood simply because the enemy underestimates Zyra jungle. As soon as you have W, this is your clear. Stand close to the small monsters and summon your plants on the large monster. The reasoning for this is that plants only take damage based off of how many times they are attacked, not the damage dealt. You will take almost no damage and your plant will live almost its entire natural life. When clearing the Rift Scuttler, use your E to begin, as the Scuttler will take extra damage while rooted or stunned. Then try to corner it to stay in the range of your plants, as it always runs away from you. The final note on Jungle Clear is soloing Dragon. It is possible to solo Dragon at level 3 as Zyra, though my runes and masteries are quite bad for it. This requires 2 health potions, double buffs, 2 smites, and 2 seeds laying on the ground before you begin. You can watch my guide on how to do it, but I thought I'd briefly mention it here, although I will also mention that most of the time, your early game is better spent elsewhere. Quick note about ganking. As Zyra is very slow with unreliable CC early on, your best ganks are brush ganks. Sit in a brush, out of vision against a pushing lane and wait for the enemy or your teammate to go aggressive. Zyra excels at counter ganking as well, so you may want to see which of your lanes are getting camped or overextending. Deep vision is also key to counter ganking. River ganks and lane ganks are much less effective, and I would only recommend these if you have a Thresh on your team or some other laner with heavy gank assistance. Next up, Teamfighting. Proper use of your ultimate can easily zone enemies away, allowing you to peel and focus on people diving you and your carries. Until you get rylized, try to use both plants as often as possible, and don't restrict yourself to only having low-range slow plants. Proper use of your ultimate is also key. Don't use it haphazardly. The dream is, of course, a 5-man ultimate, but that will rarely happen. Most often, you want to use your ultimate to split the enemy team. Make sure your ultimate is over your plants to enrage them, boosting their auto attack speed. This means that their carries would have to run through your ult's damage, its knockup, and all the damage from your new plants. This will almost never happen, giving your team time to take down their tanks. The final point I want to make about teamfighting is engaging. One of the things I hear far too often is teammates telling me to engage. Unfortunately, we can only really rely on an enemy misposition for an engage, unless we want to try a flash E combo. Warning, you only use this when you are extremely confident and the enemy is slowed, such as Xerath charging his Q, or distracted, as failing this will, more often than not, turn the teamfight into a loss. However, if this works, it can be very flashy. The last part of this video is some tips and tricks that Zyra can do. First is brush ambushes. This allows you to do an ideal EW-QW-R combo and deal an absurd amount of damage, even as a support. You can also lay seeds in a brush and wait for an enemy to come. Doing so means you can have up to 4 seeds depending on your CDR. Next up is that you can use your plants to detonate Teemo Shrooms and Shaco Traps. This is very handy if your sweeper is off cooldown. One of my favorite tricks is using a quick EW combo to block skill shots, such as Blitzcrank Hook, Thresh Hook, Lee Sin Q, Ahri Charm, and many others. To do this, wait for them to use a skill shot, or maybe be slightly before if you want to be safe. Throw your E in their direction, quickly place a seed right in front of you, directly between you and them. It takes some practice, but it can be very, very useful. Finally, remember that you can use your seeds for 30-second vision. This is useful to prevent ganks as well as face checking. Some of the more unknown and highly effective places to do this is to get vision around Dragon and Baron over the wall, as well as warding the enemy's Tri-Brush from out of vision, which can be very effective against long-range gankers such as Zac, Shaco, and Rengar. And that's it! Hopefully this was helpful and you learned a thing or two about Zyra. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter. You can also check out the full text guide on LOL Pro. If you want to see gameplay videos, parodies, or remixes, check out my other YouTube videos. Have a nice day and may your enemies feel the thorns embrace.